Hi there YouTubers, welcome back to my channel, Workshop Fun. Today I'd just like to talk about my old air compressor. I decided that I would go ahead and restore it. I was going to leave it, but it's such a nice machine that I thought, well, I'll go ahead and give it a sympathetic restoration. I haven't restored everything on it, but I have made sure that the tank was good, and as you can see, I've certainly repainted everything, and there's been quite a number of other things. So I'll get started. The first thing I'll talk about is the tank. So this is a big LPG tank from the 80s. I think it was made in 1986, this LPG tank. Now, these things were very solidly built. They were usually between 3 to 4 mil thick, so that's a lot thicker than today's modern tanks for air compressors. They're only about 1.5 mil, 2 mil maybe. I know with my new air compressor that I sold off, I could actually flex the tank when it didn't have any air in it. That's how thin it was. So what did I do with this? Well, hasn't just had a paint job. I turned around and did several flushes with varying strengths of caustic soda, and got some of the, I got the rust out and the filth that had built up over the years. So, oil and all of that. And then I got myself a little endoscopy camera and plugged it into my phone and checked out the inside of the tank. I found some pitting, but nothing major actually. It's certainly got many more years left in it yet. It's still got more meat in it than most modern day tanks have to begin with. So that was great. So after flushing it out several times with caustic soda in varying forms of strength, actually, just on a side note, why I used varying forms of strength is the first time I started out too delicate, and the second time. So the third time I put a bit more caustic soda in, and then I left it overnight. Well, actually, I left it 24 hours. And then I drained it the following day, and then I finally got some of the old filth out and surface rust that had been in the tank. And after that, I could give it a good inspection. So the tank's now as clean as a bone, and also to get the oil out, I just used a bit of. Actually, in between doing the caustic soda water treatment, for the tank, I turned around and used CLR as well, and that got all the oil out. Now I did that before I did the last round of treatment of caustic soda, so therefore there was no oil to get in the way of the caustic soda doing its job. And boy, I'll tell you what, the CLR, that really did get the old scummy oil out. Now, so that was the first steps. That took a few days, and I did that while I was stripping down the old paint. The second step is, this is a homemade air compressor, and the guy had done a lovely job, but I found when I was using it, the air compressor being so big and heavy, it used to rock a little bit because it had no front foot. So I got my friendly engineer to bend this bit of steel up in his press, and then I welded it onto the frame up the front here on the bar, and just turned around and put two red plastic squares on that I made up. And then, also, as you can see, turned around and stripped all of this down to bare steel, and then I zinc coated it a couple of times, and then started applying coats of green on it. Took me a long time to do this, but yep, it's done now and it's looking good for it, although it's already covered in dust. Funny that when you're restoring something you also make it dirty. The other thing is I didn't like its original tank, so I bought this big ball valve and turned around, and I had to put it in my lathe and turn down the end so it could actually clear this. But so this will actually probably no doubt blast a bit of the paint off over time. But anyway, at least it's a nice way of getting junk out of the tank. And I did leave the air compressor on a slight little lean towards that direction, so any build up will be up the front more than the back. On a side note to that though, before I put this thing fully back together, I'm also going to be fitting a automatic transmission cooler. A lot of people seem to be doing that on YouTube, and after the automatic transmission cooler, before the air goes into the tank, I'm going to be putting a moisture trap, and apparently that gets rid of up to 80% of the moisture going into the tank to begin with. So that's a fantastic idea, and I'll definitely be doing that. So what else has been done? Right, well, as you can see, I stripped this old GM fridge compressor down to steel, or cast iron actually, and turned around and fully repainted it, and then fitted new gaskets to everything. I just made the gaskets out of some nice decent gasket paper. There was a hole here, and how they had filled the hole is they had used a bit of insulation tape. Well, I didn't really like that, so I just did my usual trick and soldered on a 50-cent piece onto that, and turned around and repainted all of that, cleaned the sponge out. I didn't really worry about checking the bottom end or anything on this. It feels good, so I'm just going to leave it. It's it's compressing good. The oil that had been in the tank had been building up over years. It wasn't something that's been gushing out of this thing and pouring straight in there. No, it's been building up over years, so I got no worries with that compressor. It's actually going blooming good. The motor, that's another story too actually. I pulled this back plate off and straightened up all the vents. They had been bent over time. Repainted that, of course. Repainted the motor silver. Repainted the cast iron pulley in this front. Checked the bearings a little bit. There didn't seem to be any wear on the bearings. They are the old grease fill bearings, and it all feels good. So I decided I would just leave that. I was going to take the motor apart and put new bearings in, but these bearings feel good, so I thought, I'm not going to do unnecessary work. If in a couple of years I start hearing some bearing rumble, then I'll replace them then. I can pretty much leave this motor on the compressor and service the bearings quite easily. So that's neither here nor there. I've done that 100 times or 1,000,000 times. One thing I did notice, which was really nice, is when I had the back off and this front off, I could of course see into the motor, and what I noticed is the paint for like your installation paint was mint. It was absolutely mint. So I was very pleased to see that. It's a good sign that the motor is in really good order. Now, this motor's a total beast. I'm very impressed with it. It's a 4-pole, so it does your 1425 RPM, so really desirable motor. It's propulsion induction, so that's awesome, and it's a 3 horsepower single phase, so that is really cool. It's old schools to the max, really solid, and it's a propulsion induction, so it's just cool. Really awesome motor, and it's a Metropolitan Vicar. Now I know that they're pretty darn good. I've had a few and they're nice. I had to lift this thing on my own off this tank and onto this tank, and I'll tell you what, it's heavy. I think it's about 60 kgs. Don't know what that is in pounds, sorry to any Americans watching this, but blimmin' heavy. So now what I'm doing is I'm just waiting for some parts to arrive. I got a new air compressor mechanism, like your pressure sensor for your air compressor coming. This one here still had the fridge sensor, and it's really cool, but you can't have the check valve with it, and I wanted to take the strain off this and the electric motor, so I've ordered a big check valve that's going to go in here, and then I've ordered the air compressor mechanism, the name fails me at the moment, sorry, to go into here. Well, the piping's going to be screwing into here, but the piping's actually going to come out and up, so I'm going to have the thing higher, the pipe attachment higher, and then the breather from the check valve can come up and follow it. So yeah, that'll be nice and a good improvement. Now the piping that I got coming has a brass insert, and then the rest of it's all stainless, so that's lovely. I think this is 25mm, and I'm taking that down to 20mm, and then bringing it up with all nice stainless pipe. Okay, the other thing I'm doing is, the safety guard isn't quite finished yet. It's a bit covered in dust actually at the moment, but it's sitting there, and the Mitre 10 here has run out of the green paint that I've been using, so I've got them to order me a couple of bottles, or a couple of spray cans, sorry, and after that then I can sand that down, finish that, and put that onto the air compressor. I'll be fitting 2 new belts as well. The old belts have got fractures in them, so they could let go at any time. So that's all going to be done, and of course, yeah, I'll be rewiring it to suit the new compressor mechanism. One thing though, I'll be keeping this. It's a 15 amp thermal overload breaker, and you can only get 16 amps nowadays, but this is really good because this motor is 14 amps max rated, so this is only 1 amp over the motor's max rated amps, so the 16 amp is 2, so I'd rather keep it down to the minimum for any potential surges or whatever. So that's all going to go back into the box that was back here. It's just that there won't be as much in the box. The big switch and all that's gone because it's all built into the new air compressor mechanism. but I have been doing up the nice old electrical box because I really want to keep that. It's nice and old schools. What else? I'll just put this down someplace safe. Oh, the last little bit of painting I've been doing tonight is the top for the motor's electrical box. So that'll be going in soon, or going on soon, sorry. And yeah, so today I also put these wheels back together. I cleaned them all out and pulled every single one of them apart. I put all the nuts and bolts and washers into caustic soda as well, and the bearings I put into mineral terps and then let them soak and got rid of all the old grease off them, and turned around and repacked them full of aviation grease, so that's really nice. The nuts and bolts, once I'd rinsed them thoroughly, I turned around and heated them up with my heat gun, and then while they were still warm, sprayed WD-40 on them and let that soak into them for a while, and then I started putting the wheels back together. These are solid rubber wheels, and the rims are really well made actually, and the bearings are beautiful bearings. They're old pin roller bearings. Man, they're cool. So yeah, she's all coming along. And if you note here, like every single metal thing, I've cleaned it up, got rid of all the rust, put it all back together. When I repainted all of this, I took the label off so I could paint underneath it and then put the label back on. Same with the motor, that one just unscrews, so pathetically easy. You know, all the motors, nuts and bolts, they're all being cleaned and put back together. Oh, put back on the motor. So yeah, everything is getting at least sympathetically restored. Yeah, just trying to make it look nice and run nice. I'm not out to do a full rebuild on this. Like, I don't want to tear the compressor down and rebuild all the cylinders and all that. I could do that, but now it's not the time for that because I'm still in the middle of doing my caravan, and you know, money can only spread so far, and then you know, you just got to cut your cloth accordingly. And if there's no real reason to do so, then I won't. And this compressor is working beautifully, and boy is it pumping in air fast, so I'm not gonna touch it apart from just clean everything up and make sure it's all running good, and you know, make sure the filter's nice and clean and not able to get air in through the back there. The other thing I did is there's some beautiful brass work on this, so yeah, cleaned all that up, and that just makes it look really nice seeing all the brass work. So yeah, it has taken me a long time, but she's getting there. So I'll post you an update when she's all finished, but for now, thank you very much for watching. Bye.